Added to the chair.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Winterwolf's Den. Appreciate you guys checking in. I'm just going to touch on House of the Dragon episode 4 today because I'm really liking this show and I really want to talk about it with you guys. There's not a whole lot out there right now coming through from the big purveyors of our Hollywood entertainment. So when they get it right, I'm going to tell them they got it right and applaud them for the efforts that they put into the show. So we got episode 4. Daemon Targaryen back in town. He interrupts the touring situation that Princess Rhaenyra has, where she was trying to set herself up with particular suitors selected by the king and Queen Alicent, and she basically shoots a bunch of them down. Fast forward, and like I said, Daemon's back in town. You're at least a year removed from episode 3. We get another time jump. He shows up victorious. He's got himself a little crown of his own now. But he does abdicate, and he does so in fairly dramatic fashion by bringing his brother, King Viserys, the hammer that the crab feeder had been using to nail Westerosi soldiers to the debris on the beach at the stepstone where the battles were taking place. So it gives that little mic drop scene from my intro. I hope you guys thought that was kind of funny. Did the best I could with that. I appreciate it if you dropped a like just for that. And it looks like brothers are reconciling, which is kind of cool. It felt really heartfelt and genuine between the two. But alas, life being what it is and Game of Thrones being what it is, it doesn't look like it's to be. So here comes the spoilers for the rest of the episode. We working our way through the episode. One of the things I like about Game of Thrones, House of the Dragon, is that there's always more than one thing going on. The characters aren't as simple as A, B, C, D, E. They always have competing interests, and those competing interests tend to compete with the interests of other characters. So you get very well done, effective, layered conflict that comes up throughout the episode from just about every character that shows up. The King Viserys is trying to figure out what's best for the realm and what's best for his daughter and what's best for himself. The princess doesn't like that she's going to be thrown into what she thinks are stereotypical women roles for the royalty, for the monarchy. She wants to rule, but she doesn't want to have kids and just be, a baby pumping air machine. And she thinks that's going to be her fate if she sticks around or gets married. Daemon shows back up. His conflicting interests are he also wants to rule because he's the second son, but he's the more accomplished warrior. He feels he has more loyalty and a better claim through his own personal strength than his brother does. But he also does love his brother and loves Rhaenyra. So he's got some family issues that he has to pile on top of his own desire to have her and a desire not to completely obliterate his brother. The Hand, Otto Hightower, has conflicting interests also. On the one hand, he's not outright seduced by power, but he's ambitious and wants more personal power than he has. But he has to reconcile that with his role as Hand to the King, as well as having been the guy that manipulated and maneuvered his own daughter into the king's bedchamber and had her taken as queen after Viserys' first wife died. So he's got that going on. Alicent has a couple of things going on, whereas her character develops. And we see this very concretely done in the 4 episodes, and that's why I really enjoy it, where she goes from kind of mousy handmaiden to Princess Rhaenyra to becoming queen, having the babies that she has, but then learning to exert a little bit of power and a little bit of her own influence while recognizing that her father may have maneuvered her like a piece on a chessboard into positions she might not have chosen for herself. So it's kind of cool to see that come along. A couple of the other characters get some of the same conflict as well. Sir Criston Cole, who's appointed to the King's Guard by Princess Rhaenyra, becomes kind of her personal attendant, her personal bodyguard, and he's got to conflict his desires to maintain his oath and duty as a member of the King's Guard, while also kind of having a thing for Princess Rhaenyra herself. And she doesn't make it easy on him in this episode, believe me. They have their moment that comes up near the end, and it's kind of a scorcher as far as Game of Thrones go. They're back on that again for sure. But you get a lot of these angles that come through with the different characters. Even some of the smaller members of the small council have conflicting, competing interests, and you get to see the web intricately being woven in a way that makes you appreciate that they thought this all through, that this story has obviously been well thought out, well designed, storyboarded, however you want to put it, and it will likely end up in a satisfying conclusion. We're going to get our twists and turns along the way, but I don't think over the course of this show anybody's going to be wanting for more complexity or subtlety or a higher quality of writing. Like thus far through 4 episodes, I'm not rating any of these less than an 8 out of 10. I think that each episode does something really well in its own regard. In particular, I thought that the politicking in this episode was very well done. When we have Daemon come back a year or so after the Battle of Stepstones, looking like he's trying to insert himself as the dutiful second son back into the family, but then as events transpire, and I won't spoil them all down the stretch for you guys, this was pretty good, the specifics of it anyway. He's reinserting himself back into the Targaryen home because he said he's sick of being away and he just wants the comforts of home, which is great. But we see kind of his machinations unfold, and we realize that he is kind of a duplicitous person. And even though he was the hero of a battle last week, like he's not a good guy. Like he's not a knight in shining armor. He's not Jon Snow from Game of Thrones, who always had everybody's best interest at heart. He's not Ned Stark by a stretch. So he's not that guy. But they do layer him out in a way that all of his decisions make sense for him. And I say that for the other characters as well, as all the kind of choices that people make are logical and well-intentioned, and they kind of add up to something that's a little bit higher caliber than some of the other shows we're getting right now, particularly the other couple that I'm reviewing as we go. So I think Game of Thrones has found its way back. It's interesting to see the alliances really take shape now. The decisions the king has to make in this episode are pretty much going to set the table for everything that happens from this episode out. I think we have 4 or 5 episodes left to go, and I've been told that we have one more episode with this particular cast of characters, with Rhaenyra and Alicent in particular, and probably Laenor, where we have a big enough time jump that it necessitated them getting older actors and actresses now to pick up these roles after the time jump. So I'm not sure if that's next week or if that's the week after. But we've now seen that through the end of the episode, one of the things that Viserys picks up on is that Otto Hightower might not have been acting in his best interest the entire time, and he may also have been kind of duplicitous in the actions that he recommended the king had taken over the past years. And he kind of puts him on blast at the end of it. And the spoiler I'll give you here is that he dismisses Otto from service as hand of the king. He basically tells him, "You can peace out." He doesn't use the word banished, but he basically says this. No, he says that to Daemon. I take that back. He de-hands Otto, but he basically tells Daemon to piss off at the end of the episode and don't come back. But we see in the scenes from the setup for next week after the credits of the episode that basically we're making decisions now, Viserys is, we're making decisions that have to keep Westeros safe because other alliances across the sea at the Stepstones are reforming in different ways that require his direct intervention now. And that decisions and other actions that he might have been putting off for a while are going to come back to bite him in the ass if he doesn't get to it. But I won't spoil too much more than that. I'll give a couple of quick shouts to some of the actors that I really thought turned in the performances. Once again, Paddy Considine. This is his show, King Viserys. He has come a long way since the first episode, where he almost struck me as kind of like a clown out of his own element. But they've layered so many intricate, complex emotions on top of him as he goes, where he had a great line from last week, episode 3, where he says, I feel like I'm doomed to make one person happy only at the expense of pissing somebody else off at me. And you can really see that unfolding now, because every single thing he does, every moment of peace he gets, just gets yanked right out from underneath him, almost within the next scene. So I'll give credit where credit's due to the actor. He's definitely turned it around. He's definitely one of my favorite performers on the show at this point. I mean, I'm still a big Matt Smith fan, going back to The Doctor and all that good stuff. But him as Daemon Targaryen is chef's kiss casting. This show probably doesn't get the 8 out of 10 that it gets from me episode to episode if Matt Smith isn't in it, just being his charming, gregarious self. Like, he commands the screen when he's there, and that's the show needs that. Distant third of a character that I'm enjoying. I'm enjoying Kristen Cole as Rhaenyra's personal bodyguard. He's coming a long way. He's the closest thing to like the knight archetype I think we're going to get on the show, which means he's probably going to get it really bad when he finally gets got, because that always happens to the good guys. We know that. So I'm going to give credit to those guys where I see it there. Rhaenyra's character also developing nicely. She's still doing the entitled princess thing, but it works because we have other characters repeatedly smack her down when it happens and let her know that, like, you know, life's a little bit more complicated than you think it is, and you don't have it so bad. It's nice to see entitlement get balanced out with a little bit of humility, because it's definitely lacking in another show that'll remain nameless. But you guys all know which one it is, I'm sure, because you've seen my other videos on Rings of Power. Oh, damn it, I named it. But anyways, guys, I'm gonna take off. I'm digging House of the Dragon, if you couldn't tell. I could talk about the episode for a couple of hours, just go plot point by plot point. But everything they've done so far has worked for me. I have nothing that I can really, I have nothing bad to say about it at all. It seems like everything's clicking for them. They're firing on all cylinders. They give you the politics, they've given you the violence, they've given you the sex and debauchery this week. I think Game of Thrones is on its way with this series of turning in product worthy of the name. It can't erase the stain from season 8 of the last series, and that there's nothing they can do except reshoot that'll make people happy. But as far as House of the Dragon goes, guys, you're definitely in for a treat. You should check it out on HBO Max. I'll give it a 2 Winter Wolf thumbs up on that. You should definitely check it out. But I'm going to take off. I will see you guys in the next one. Please drop a like, comment if you liked it or not. Sub to the channel if you don't mind. Also, I got to start telling people to ring the notification bell. That would help out a lot. And I will see you guys in the next one. Thanks for dropping in.